Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dual Screens podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Fontana, and with me, as always, those are words, and they go together in a sentence, and they form a coherent thought. He's Andy Asimakis. How are you, Andy?
I feel good.
Me too.
Steven.
Me too.
I feel like we get into a lot of stuff about how games are made from a technical standpoint,
Sure.
inspirations of a story,
Right.
but diving into the artistry of the game, the talent,
the minutia of the visual.
Yes,
the visual minutia, as it were.
It's been a while since we've had an artist on the show.
It is
quite a long time.
And not only that, but we got like top tier here. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. With us is Jeff Hanna, the principal technical artist at Volition, who's worked on Red Faction Guerilla, Agents of Mayhem, of course, the Saints Row franchise, and I don't know, maybe you heard that there's a new one coming. Maybe. I don't know if you're not living under a rock. Jeff, welcome to the show.
New Saints Row, not new Agents of Mayhem.
No.
As much as I love that product and there is love for that product, we're back on Saints Row.
Back on the Saints Row, yes. That actually kind of took a lot of people by surprise, the announcement that this thing was coming out. But before we get into your career, before we get into anything else, let's tell people, A, what show you're on, what it's about, and B, what the hell they're listening to. Folks, this is the Dual Screens podcast, the internet's #1 developer interview podcast starring two dudes you've never heard of, probably. The show posts each and every Friday for your listening pleasure on your podcast service of choice, including our home, Podbean. And of course, you can find this everywhere else: Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, your sister's ass, wherever. We're everywhere, literally everywhere. You go and you look, you'll find us. We're there. And of course, you can watch the video version on youtube.com/dualscreens.tv. And if you want to support us on Patreon, it's simple. Go to patreon.com/NDS podcast. And we want to thank our 3 Patreon producers: Colton the Apprentice Nestler, Vegas Girl on Fire, and of course FNH Paul. We can't continue to grow without all of your support. This show is possible, and guests like Jeff are all because of the hard-earned cash dollar bills that you give us so that we can continue living our dreams. So thank you so very much for doing that. Now, Andy, I'm sure you've been salivating about this one for a little bit. You've been salivating at the glands. Your glands are salivating. I could see it. Hit us with our ceremonial opening question of the show.
Jeff, just so you know, there's always a lead-off question in the podcast to sort of like break the ice, set the tone.
I'm suddenly very nervous.
And usually I spend like a good chunk of the day marinating my own thoughts. What could be the lead-off question? It's got to be good, to the point, energetic. Never has a question come so easily.
Oh, wow.
And with this show.
Is that why you had time for the nap?
Yes, exactly. How much would it cost to commission you to draw a picture of myself beating up Steve with a dildo bat?
Wow.
Literally priceless. Because you guys are putting a lot of emphasis on the artist portion of technical artist.
Uh-huh.
I at this point in my career, I trend much more towards the technical side of that definition. I did start in the industry as a 3D modeler. I was an art director. I was an art director at a very small startup. I've done visual effects. But honestly, from the point that I was an art director, which is like 2004, 2005 until now, I have leaned entirely towards writing artist tools so that they can worry about iterating on the art and not worrying about the technical aspects of making the game. So I am essentially a very specialized programmer right now. So I could probably maybe code something up that would simulate him getting hit with a dildo bat, but you don't.
That is incredible. That's blue pill, red pill stuff, Andy. That's what that is. That's what that is. Jeff, so why don't go into a little bit more of what your actual role is. I know you just kind of briefly explained it, but also maybe your day-to-day, like go over what your day-to-day is when it comes to, especially because you're not just a little indie dev that could, you're not a 6-person team. Like you are part of a well-oiled machine. This is like the sausage factory, how the sausage is made, Fennel edition. Like you are a very specialized part of the sausage. So why don't you give us a little bit of a deep dive as to what your role is?
So in high school, remember the theater nerds?
Yes, I was one of them.
Okay, and remember the stage crew, like the sub theater nerds?
Yes, we smoked pot with some of them. Yes,
I am the game development version of the stage crew. If you put a programmer and an artist in a room and tell them that they need to come to a decision on something, they will have a very detailed and very interesting discussion, and they will both get up and walk out of that room and go do 2 entirely different things.
Okay.
Because they will use the same words, they will have the same ideas, but their lexicon is completely different. And so they will come to 2 completely different conclusions. And so a technical artist is a weird breed of person that can think down the middle of that brain divide. Like I just said a few minutes ago, I started off as a 3D modeler in the gaming industry. My degree is specifically, at the time it was called technical graphics technology, which is horribly oxymoronic.
Yeah,
it's now called computer graphics technology. I was trained up in the full gamut of graphic arts, marker pens, gouaches, airbrush, all that stuff nobody uses anymore. I used to have a tackle box in college full of a bunch of overexpensive physical media that no one would even pay me 1/10 of it for now. So I am traditionally trained in graphic arts, but I started college as an engineer and failed horribly. And so I have that sort of mind also. And so I can understand what the programmer's saying, and I can understand what the artist is thinking. And my job is mostly a communicator, but my form of communication is email, because we all use email, but also writing a tool, scripting a program that the artist can use to express their vision without having to worry about all of the technical issues about making that vision work in the game engine, which is what the programmer is horribly worried about. And so whether I'm writing a tool to run on top of a piece of commercial software like Autodesk Maya, 3ds Max, or on a game engine or Unreal, Unity, or in the case of Volition, our own homegrown 3D engine, that's where I do my communication skills, is I make sure that the artist doesn't have to worry about the technical issues, and the programmer doesn't have to worry about getting art that isn't going to work within the specifications defined for the engine in the game.
So is it kind of like, hey, let's do X, Y, and Z, and then you'll kind of just interject and be like, well, that won't work, but if you do this, I can make that work, kind of thing. Like I could get you from point A to point B, but like you kind of set those ground rules a little bit. You're kind of like a mediator.
A little bit. Generally, the programmer is going to know more about the rules. My job is, okay, so let's say we want to, when a vehicle hits an obstacle, let's say it's a fire hydrant, a curb, a cat, a pedestrian, whatever, that when the vehicle
dark very quickly.
Well, these are the
grandma.
When the vehicle takes damage, along with the body crumpling, we want to make sure that realistically the wheels offset from where they were, so that it helps sell the idea that the vehicle is damaged. Plus, you don't want the wheels stuck in its original position on the axle and then poking through the crumpled body. So how do we handle damaging and moving where the wheels are located? Okay, well, the artist is doing this in the 3D software. We use 3ds Max for vehicles. And so they've exported the data in this way. I can now, in a tool, look through all that data, find where the vehicle attachment points are for the wheels, and then we can do some things, either by having the artist generate more data in Max to tell me where to move those things, or just fudging it, writing a little mathematical algorithm to say, well, move it this far. And so then the data coming out the far into my tool, when you put into the game, will handle that extra bit of realism that we want to put into it.
Is that
how does?
Go ahead, Andy.
No, I was gonna say, how does someone get into this particular kind of work? It sounds very specialized.
It is
in game
and
development.
I will say that when did I join? I started giving roundtables at the Game Developers Conference for technical artists 12 years ago. I set a goal for myself that year. I was either going to get it published in a magazine or I was going to speak at a conference. And it's the general rule of be careful what you wish for. I accomplished both. But I got to the Game Developers Conference, and I'm going to do a roundtable. So there's different types of things that happen at Game Developers Conference. There's lectures, which is one person speaking to many. There are roundtables, which is literally a group of people sitting in a room and having a free-flowing discussion. And I thought that'd be more interesting. Plus, it's a little easier to get one of those approved. And so I did that, and I didn't know at that time. I was still at Mythic working on Dark Age of Camelot. I didn't know if anybody else in the industry even did what I did. Before Dark Age of Camelot and Mythic, I'd done a little startup where I was an art director, and I had the budget for one artist at this startup. And actually I got the budget extended to get 2 artists, but I realized that as the art director, I had to somehow force multiply. And so I taught myself the scripting language inside of 3D Studio Max so that I could save these artists from doing repetitive tasks. And that's really the genesis of what a technical artist is how do you make the artist's life easier?
Right.
And so I decided to hold these roundtables, and next thing I know, the conference assistants are turning people away because the room by fire code only holds 120 people. And
wow.
Those roundtables are 3 times a week for the week of GDC. You do them Tuesday, Wednesday, or you do them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I've run those roundtables now for 12 years. About 3 years after the roundtables, I held the first ever technical artist boot camp at GDC. And a boot camp is just, it's a day of lectures specifically for a discipline. And so artists had been saying GDC is where programmers go. There's not a lot of information for us. And so I was like, well, let's just have a day. And so I promoted this idea, and at the end of again, standing room only. And at the end of the day, I got asked the most scary question I've ever been asked in my life, which was, what are you going to do for this next year? I hadn't thought past the first year at all.
Oh
and
my.
At this point, I've actually been invited onto the advisory board that runs GDC because they were looking for technical artist representation because this whole thing has kind of exploded. And so I'm like, what do I do? Well, we've now been running those for 10 years, and it might be 14 on the roundtables and 12 on the boot camps. It gets a little hazy. But of like the dozen or so boot camps that have been run, I've done 2 of them. And every year, a different notable person in the tech artist community says, hey, Jeff, I'll take it this year. And so now it's become this sort of community franchise thing that just runs. So it's all blown up from this one, I don't even know if anyone's going to walk in the room to this roundtable, to a decade plus of the roundtables and a decade plus of the boot camps and a thriving community with our own web forum and a Slack channel. And we actually incorporated like 2 years ago, so that we could do better fundraising. And because it's easy to go to Autodesk and say, hey, I represent this nonprofit. Could you give us some money to run a party at GDC? Versus, hey, my name's Jeff and I've got this community on the internet and I'd like to get some money from you. And so there's technical artists all over the world that contribute to this thriving community, and we talk across company boundaries, and we freely share information and how to do things. And so it's become this wonderful little gem of a community on top of my career. And it's really kind of bizarre because it all goes back to, hey, I want to get published this year. That's my goal for this new year, is I want to get published. And it's mind blowing. And I completely forgot what we were talking about because you guys asked me to define what tech art is. Tech art literally is a group of people who are focused on making the lives of artists easier and making the games better by making sure there's no issues to get to a vision.
Right. I mean, yeah, there's different types of, there's different programmers. Like I know a friend of mine, he's an AI programmer. Like he specializes in programming AI in games. Like that's what he does. And that runs, in tandem with the main scripting, systems, and then so like you do have an art system that also plays in with this situation. But it sounds like when you first did this, did you find more people as you started doing these roundtables? Did you find more and more people that thought they too were the only person that did this job where they were, or by then was it a like defined position?
No, early on it was very much, oh my gosh, I found kindred spirits. And early on in the roundtables, a lot of the discussions all week long were, how do I lie on my resume? Because this company is hiring for this company's hiring for that. Nobody even knows what tech art is. And so nobody's hiring for what I want to do. And so we literally were like, well, just call yourself an artist and do this and this, and then get in there. And then while you're doing the jobs they've given you as an artist, start writing little scripts for the other artist. And you'll find that you'll get, like, we were figuring out how to do end runs around the man, basically, to make sure that we all had jobs. And now some of the discussions are like, well, I'm graduating next May with my master's degree in tech art. And I still to this day can't fathom that that's occurred. That there's now entire university curriculum about this stuff.
That's amazing.
It's been. Oh, by the way, I have a single dad, 2 teenage daughters, and we just got a kitten.
That's awesome. My cat's over here. Don't worry, we're cat people. Well, at least I am. He's a dog. His dog's probably behind him.
My dog's walking through.
Out.
No worries. That's incredible because, like, honestly, when you look up what this is, like, I come from the theater world. There's always the technical director, right? Like the technical director, their job is to make sure that the equipment and the vision speak to each other. Like that's really what it comes down to. The director's like, I want the pink to be in this area, and then the technical director goes, all right, well, we're going to have to hang the grid this way. It's going to have to be, we're going to have to run the wires this way. We're going to have to, whatever. So like I could kind of draw the line there a little bit. It's
an unfortunate change in labeling. And this is probably just because of how they came about in the gaming industry. But I could go get a job in the movie industry right now and I would be called the technical director. It's the same role. It's just, we ended up calling them 2 different things.
Got it. Cool.
So if someone asks if you're an artist, you just go, technically.
Actually, even when I was like, oh, so you're an artist? And I would go, no, I'm a graphic designer because I prefer to get paid for my work.
Yeah, I get it. Definitely. So you've been kind of on I guess Volition in general has been kind of on a little blitz lately with the reveal of the new Saints Row and all that fun stuff. What has that been like for you guys as a team? Seeing all that kind of get finally, is it really like, oh, our baby's finally, like, people know it exists, thank God? Like, what is that like?
We've been quiet on this one for quite a while, although I do believe the CEO of THQ Nordic, now Embracer Group, I believe Lars did mention in an earnings call almost 18 months. It was definitely pre-COVID times, in the before times.
Yes.
We were working on a Saints Row. But to finally have it out there and see and let people see where we've located it and what we want to do with it, and that it's not a sequel to 4, because as we've said, once you blow up the planet, you've sort of narratively written yourself into a corner.
Yeah.
It gets a little hard. But to show, and like we showed in the Vision trailer, there is so much new blood at Volition, and to see what they wanted to bring to the product and where it's taken us. And I see what we've done. We've been working on this thing since before AOM shipped, literally. I mean, there's always overlap. To see what we've done, and yes, the game is definitively a Saints Row game, but there are so many new thoughts in there, and there's so much input from new people to see how this thing can act. Just like I'm talking about tech art, to see where it was, because when I joined in 2006, when I came to Volition, they were still working on Saints Row 1. And it hadn't released yet. And it was going to be on the Xbox 360. And to see where we've gone from 1 all the way through 4 and now to Saints Row again, and how it all is still there, but it is being expressed in this new, different, fun definite way of the times we're in, and with the whole new, the look of it. And it's literally the best looking game we've made since I've been at Volition, and I've been there for 16 years, 2015 years. It really is, it's exciting. It's exciting to see the company, especially what we've been through. We haven't worked together as a group in a building in 18 months. And to see the fact that that hasn't stopped the momentum of this thing and what people want to do to it is really just kind of astounding to me.
Yeah, I like the idea of a reboot, because you have the original series can exist in its own bubble, in a sense. Like, here are the original games that you know and love, and now here's a fresh take where things can go wildly different and in new directions, and it is like super exciting, as you said.
Yeah, and to know, we've definitely found our footing at 3. Like, for sure. 3 is you know, that's where we realize that the over the top, let the player do whatever the heck they want. And a lot of the ethos on 3 was convince us why we shouldn't. Right? Like, that's, you'd be walking down the hall and somebody have an idea and you'd be like, convince me why we shouldn't. And suddenly you have, I don't know if you guys ever played the DLC, but with the dubstep gun and people dance.
Oh, God.
Occasionally, I don't know, I don't understand production, but occasionally in the schedule, there's like a gap week, and we call those awesome weeks. And literally on an awesome week, and you get, maybe, if you're lucky, you get one, you'll definitely get one, but if you're lucky, maybe you'll get 2 awesome weeks in a project. But during an awesome week, you have literally the edict to go do something in the game engine that isn't on the schedule. Go do whatever you want, right? Get a team together and do something by yourself. At the end of one of the Saints Row 3 awesome weeks, 2 different groups could come up with the concept of the dubstep gun without talking to each other. And we're like, well, that's got to go in, right? And so there it is. And I can't enumerate all of them, but from Saints Row 3 through 4 and Get Out of Hell, and even some things in Agents of Mayhem, many of the things you see in those games are the results of Awesome Week. Because at the end of the week, we have a meeting and everybody presents their Awesome Week ideas and they get rated. And then they get put on the schedule as definitives, maybe let's readdress this later sort of things. And they all, quite a lot of them end up in the final product. And so just to know that we found that putting our own voices in the game and going with the humorous things, like, okay, well, let's do a gun that's actually a DJ mix table that causes the world to, for some reason, spawn just rave lights, and then everyone dances themselves to death. Let's just do that, right? Why should we say no to whatever the player may want to do? And to know that we're now going back to Saints Row, we're going back to beginnings, basically, but we're bringing the knowledge of that's what the franchise is truly all about with us, means that this game is going to be outstanding. And we know that right now the path forward from this may be super windy and hard to see right now, but we know where that path is supposed to go, and that's going to help us define what that path is. And Lord knows, right? It's gonna be as fun a trip as it's been in the previous 16 years of Volition to see what, hopefully for me, the next 16 years are.
You know, it sounds like everyone gets a decent shot at like fame, because when you have a game that features a dubstep gun and a dildo bat, I feel like
can't get over that one, huh?
From the tippy top person down to like the guy bringing you the bagels in the morning, everyone can give an idea to what this game could look like. Because what's off the table at that point?
The only thing that's really on the table at that point is you making the suggestion have to understand that it will be listened to.
Yeah.
It may be vetoed for some other reason. And that's literally like, you know.
You know exactly what question I want to ask here. And I know Andy wants to ask it too. Give us one that never made it. Give us one awesome week idea that you thought was just phenomenal, but it just couldn't get put in.
I can't. Because I'm gonna probably.
Oh, because you might use it at some point.
Exactly. And so that would give information away.
Should we come up with our own awesome week idea?
Yeah, I think that's
should we do a brainstorming sesh?
I'm just trying to wrap my mind around a game that has dildo bats in it.
Oh, here we go.
What does it make it in?
Do you?
And it's like, it's gonna give me the aneurysm one day, years from now.
Yeah.
So it's gonna happen.
I mean, let's talk about some other things about the game. You seem fixated on.
Yeah, well, he's he's a garbage person.
I do know of a member of the press who has one of those in his basement and doesn't know what to do about it. I can probably hook you up if you're looking to add one.
He absolutely would. Yes. There's not a question. You shouldn't have even offered that, because now you will get a follow-up email.
Yeah, with my mailing address and all the information,
and a prepaid envelope.
Yes,
or
and a prepaid like UPS overnight label.
You have a 6-foot box.
But you must autograph it, though, because it has to be a Jeff Hanna autographed.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say that I maybe haven't done that before.
That's like mental worthy, you know.
It is. It absolutely is. And it will be your first weapon of choice during the zombie apocalypse, whenever that is. And according to our calendars, it's probably 2023. It's coming. It's coming. We've hit many of the apocalypse already this last 18 months. But I want
some of them show up on eBay used every now and then.
That is gently used.
Yeah. So you should. Well, I mean, what do you do as a member of the press who's been hanging on to one of these things for like 10 years? What do you do with it, right?
I know. What does that garage sale look like at some point? Here's like my grandma's old quilts, some china, like an old cuckoo clock, and this massive purple dildo bat.
The one that makes me sad is, I mean, you guys know THQ got sold off.
Yes. Yeah.
Like a while ago. Well, I don't like the E3 for Saints Row 3. They commissioned some custom shop in LA to make Professor Genki's pickup truck.
Oh my god!
One that scooped up the humans and played, and shot the humans out of the cannon, and it shot T-shirts. And it had the cat eyes on the front of it. It was perfect. It had speakers. It played the John Sousa music, the John Philip Sousa music. It was not highway legal, but supposedly there's video of it tearing around LA on the 405. But I was told by the then head of Volition, like 2 years after the fact, because these things never all get sold at once. He's like, hey, they're selling off like the last THQ warehouse, and the Professor Genki pickup truck is there. And my brother and I do, there's a racing series called the 24 Hour of Lemons. I don't know if you've heard of it, but you have to prove to the judges you haven't spent more than $500 on the car. The base car. You get unlimited and for safety, and you have to put a roll cage and a fuel cutoff, and you have to wear the fire suit. It's literally the cheapest way to do true fender to fender racing. We race a 1992 Ford Escort GT with like 250,000 miles on the clock. But the head of Volition's like, hey Jeff, I know you do that like racing thing, and they're trying to sell the Professor Genki pickup truck because it's just rotting away in a warehouse. And I'm like, I can't. I can't. And it's probably one of my biggest regrets, because it would have been the funniest damn thing ever. I have no idea what happened to it. It's probably been chopped up for parts at this point. But yeah, it's upsetting because that thing was.
So switching gears a little bit, before the show, we were talking about how difficult it's really been to develop this game throughout COVID. I mean, we've had the COVID. Believe it or not, a lot of smaller development teams kind of thrived during COVID because they can work together as a team all around the clock. They didn't have hours or whatever, and they could be with their families. They could say, all right, I'm gonna go take my kids to the park, I'll be back later, and like everything would be fine. So they really weren't harmed as much. Plus, showing off their game wasn't as difficult because you could get do the streaming through Discord and all this stuff. We did PAX Online a couple of times already, E3 and all that fun stuff. So for a smaller development team, I could imagine it's definitely way different for a team like Volition.
It is and it isn't. I was impressed. I was beyond impressed with how quickly we went remote, and I really shouldn't have been. We went from 200-ish people in the office to about 6 people in the office in about a day and a half.
Wow.
And the reason for that is I don't know if a lot of people know this. We're located in Champaign, Illinois. If you draw a line from Chicago to St. Louis, north-south line from Chicago to St. Louis, and you draw a line directly west from Indianapolis, where those two lines meet is basically Champaign. And you'll notice that from any of those three cities, before you get to Champaign, it's nothing but cornfields. We're literally in the middle of the Midwest. And so you don't get, it's hard to hire people. I mean, we get good people. I don't know, you want me to pause? My daughter wants to get
it's fine. It's completely fine.
So we rely on a very good amount of outsourcing, and we always have. We really started leaning heavily on outsourcing with Red Faction Guerilla. And a lot of studios do outsourcing with, we're going to send you a lot of paper information about the things we want. You make them, you send them back to us, and then we will make them work in our game. And we realized that we didn't have the overhead for that. And so our ethos has always been team expansion. No matter what outsourcing company we work with or how we work with them, they are considered an extension of our team, which means that they are considered first-class users of our tool set. We write our own tool set. We don't use an Unreal. We don't use a Unity. You'll find of the companies that do open world games, up to this point, none of them use an off-the-shelf engine because it's a very hard technological problem that you have to solve. And so we have a server room in our building downtown, about 4 miles from me, and it has our asset database in it. And no matter where you are in the world, if you are one of our outsourcers, you connect to that whole system the way we do internally. You use the same tools we use. You're talking to the same databases that we use. And literally what that means, and this, in the course of Red Faction alone, I think I went to Shanghai, China. I went to Shanghai, China 11 times in 10 years across like 2 products. And you put me at a Wi-Fi connection with a laptop and I can work. No matter where I am in the world, I can get to my desktop computer here and I can work. I've worked from a corner office on a high rise in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia during the development of AOM. And so we just had this ability to remote our data so well that when the call came down, hey, nobody come into the office, COVID, everybody work from home, install this client. We use a desktop client called Splashtop and type in these credentials and you're good to go. It just worked for everybody. Because of our history of being able to treat outsourcers as a member of our own team, it just worked. Now, over time, we've done a few different things, like the animators didn't like the lag, and so we took their work machines to their houses and established VPNs. The sound designers were the first ones back in the office because there was more equipment in their sound studios at the office than there is at home. But for the most part, we have been working as a separated remote team for 18 months. And I haven't seen recently, although I don't think it's dipped too much, our work statistics over the first 3 or 4 months of the pandemic, we got more accomplished.
Oh, that was going to be my next question. Wow. It didn't. You had no impact. You had no impact on the schedule, or it was just.
There's been impacts. I mean, it gets to everybody, right? And people had to figure out how this is going to be, and then you got to develop your own work habits. But it wasn't. There's been like, well, crap, we have to delay the game a year because of this. And we're right where we're supposed to be on it. So in terms of major impacts, absolutely not.
That's amazing.
In terms of cutting features, none that I know of.
Wow. That's amazing. That's awesome.
The studio's nimble. I do want to ask, because you work for a larger company, I saw this thing recently. It was from Sean Layden, the former head of PlayStation Studios, about the growing costs of AAA game development and how you could see potentially games of huge AAA scale costing like $200 million just to make at some point. What are your thoughts on that? Do you see games, as you move into the future with these new consoles getting like with these huge price tags just to even make and to ship out the door for you guys?
I think, well, prices are always going to go up. When I started in the industry in '95, a game with a budget of 6 figures was like, holy crap, right? And I mean, and it hasn't stopped, and the numbers still kind of always astound me. I think that calculation, though, is based on a certain knowledge of what the human cost to make a game is, and that is going to be offset and is already being offset massively by procedural systems. We have to rely more on the technology helping us get to the end goal than we have in the past. And there are some amazing off-the-shelf packages. Houdini is amazing for procedural generation of art assets. Procedural generation of missions is probably already being done somewhere. I'm not 100% aware of it, but I wouldn't doubt it. We have to rely more on using the CPU cycles as an ally up front than just basically the camera to deliver the film at the end of the day. And that will not necessarily keep costs where they are today. The costs are always going to go up. But do I think, because the brunt of that article was really, it really pushed towards Game Pass is not going to be viable, and I don't buy that. I think Game Pass is going to be entirely viable. I have talked to various developer friends who have their indie developer friends who have their games on Game Pass and say that the revenue share from Microsoft is phenomenal. Now, I don't know what the financials are at Microsoft for that. I don't know how much that, I don't know if it's a loss leader. I don't know how much money they're funneling into Game Pass right now to make it work. But you know, a corporation like Microsoft has figured this out. They know if they're doing a loss leader thing on it right now, they know the point in time where it is going to go from being in the red to being in the black for them.
Right.
And they wouldn't be doing this because they've invested a lot into Game Pass. They've invested a lot into xCloud. They're going the extra step here in a couple of weeks to put xCloud on current gen Xbox hardware to address the fact that we can't get new Xboxes unless you're willing to pay scalper prices or pay scalper prices.
Right.
So they're relying on their ability to make xPax and xCloud work for everybody to keep the gamers engaged over that hump. And so they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't have complete faith that that system was the way forward. And so do I think that it's going to fall apart because people are going to make a $200 million game and they're not going to be able to make their money back off of XPass or Game Pass, excuse me? No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think Microsoft is much better at understanding where the financial situation is going to be 5, 10, 15 years down the road with this system than any of us could even begin to comprehend. I'm really kind of surprised that Sony and Nintendo haven't followed that model more quickly. Especially given that Sony owned Gaikai long before Microsoft started doing
right.
And so, you know, there's discussions going on in those boardrooms about what does this mean and should we be looking at this? Do I think that Game Pass is going, that type of Netflix delivery is going to be the only mechanism? No, I don't. And Microsoft clearly doesn't, because they allow their first party studios, they allow their internal studios to be day one on Game Pass and then also sell elsewhere. You can go buy Sea of Thieves on Steam right now if you want. You can go buy State of Decay on Steam if you want. That's up to the studios that developed it, from what I understand. Microsoft's like, no, you can go do that. We don't go find revenue. And so are we going to see a game that's hit $200 million? We already have.
Right.
Are we going to see a game that hits $500 million? I hope it doesn't get that high, but I think somewhere between 200 and 500, we're certainly going to see new top ends.
Yeah. You know, when Game Pass first started coming around, I felt like it was a lot of the knee-jerk reaction where it's a reactionary move to a struggling company like Xbox, not Microsoft. Obviously, Microsoft is never struggling ever, but like Xbox was getting their ass kicked as far as optics, and they admitted defeat basically, and so a lot of people thought that was the reason. I started to think that I think this is a reaction to the free-to-play mobile space, because there are far more people that are now willing to be a part of the Fortnite club and the, you know, all these monthly subscriptions that are in these season passes, all this stuff. That is where every one of those games makes their millions and millions of dollars, the ones that do really well. And if Microsoft's confident enough in the games that they're creating that they are going to be games that people are going to want to be engaged in, then offering them for a subscription, not for free, but a subscription, still making money, right? Still making money, but then also having like, hey, you want this cosmetic? Give us $1. And it's like, yay. And then 1 million people give you $1 in a day. Like there are ways to increase revenue, and a lot of the developers that we spoke to that are on Game Pass, some of them had different deals altogether. Like they didn't want to go into the exact detail, but we will suggest something that we heard from somebody else, and they would say, oh no, our deal was a little bit more like this. And it's like, so Microsoft is being malleable with that as well. They're not, it's not a one size fits all situation. And I think that's why Sony and especially Nintendo hasn't done it, because they are big time creatures of old habit. Big time. I feel like it's very the Japanese way. It's very traditionalist. It's very, strict and just way less fluid in that way. But the shift is coming. If Microsoft keeps doing what they're doing and it keeps opening eyes and that value proposition continues to go down for their competition, the competition is going to have to react to it at some point. It's going to have to happen.
I agree with all of that. I also think Microsoft has a clear understanding of the inevitable commoditization of hardware. Software is where it's at because hardware is harder to design and it devalues itself faster. I'm a pilot. The very first game I worked on out of college was a World War II flight simulator. I got a pilot's license. You get magazines. Back then, the magazines would be full of ads about, hey, spend all this money on this widget, this physical widget that you have to then have a mechanic install in the dashboard of your airplane, in your cockpit dashboard. And it does this. And these days you play those same magazines and there's not an ad for any of that hardware. But it's, hey, download our iPad app and then mount your iPad to the yoke in the airplane and do this. And so you can load your iPad up with all this aviation stuff, more aviation stuff than you would ever have been able to afford when it was all hardware based. But it's software based now. And the people that are writing those widgets, they don't care. They know Apple's going to make an iPad. And if Apple doesn't make an iPad, someone's going to make an Android tablet. And they'll just port the software over there. They don't have to go through the hassle of designing the hardware.
And manufacturing it. And
right. And now, granted, there always has to be a target platform. xCloud runs on something. Right now, it runs on a bunch of servers that are literally server rack designed versions of Xbox Series X's. Right. So Microsoft still had to design that hardware. But when you get right down to it, other than a few little edge cases, both the PS5 and the Xbox Series X are commodity PC hardware. They've done a few things differently with memory access between the hard drive and the video card, but we're seeing that come to Windows 11 and being backported to Windows 10 with direct storage. But generally, it's off-the-shelf components. These components are always going to get made. So targeting those as a base platform and then saying, well, this version of that collection of things represents what an Xbox is, means that they can now focus more on the software side of things. And it means that we as consumers may just need to buy a smart TV or maybe just need to buy a dongle. And a dongle with an HDMI chip and some sort of Microsoft specific chip in it that connects to an xCloud server is a far cheaper manufacturing proposition than here's a $299, $399 Xbox Series X, which nobody can buy right now because of chip shortages. So what we're really looking at all this money invested in R&D, and we're not making any revenue off it right now because very few people actually own the damn thing. And so going that route makes everyone tries to compare xCloud to the Netflix model, and it really isn't, because there are many the movies have always been software. You went to the movie theater because the movie theater only had the hardware with which to play them, but we've had the ability to get rid of that hardware and see the movie in our family room for literally decades.
But just think about what VHS did to what VHS did to movies. You used to spend $80 to $100 on a movie on VHS. and then how quickly that turned to $20, $10, and then DVDs and Blu-ray and like all this stuff, and all of a sudden it just beamed to your TV in an instant. Video games is just 40 years behind. That's it.
Exactly. Who has a VHS player now? Nobody. Who has a DVD player now? Well, some of us can shove DVDs into our game consoles, but people with dedicated DVD players?
Nah.
Zero.
Few and far between.
Right. Who owns a TiVo anymore? And that was futuristic not that long ago.
Yeah.
Those are all dedicated hardware. They've all gone by the wayside. Can we still watch movies? Yes. Can we still record? Well, yeah, cable systems will do the TiVo thing for you. Or you can just go to the play on demand thing and do the same thing the TiVo was going to do. It's all been replaced with software, and it will always be replaced with software. And I think Microsoft just understands that console hardware is an inevitability to be commoditized to the point that it's not worth developing another one.
Right.
And I've always wondered, like, what would it take to get Sony or Nintendo to do a whole, like, a Game Pass type model? Like, when their games, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it's a port of a Wii U game that still sells monster numbers.
It's top 10 every month.
Right. And it's like, well, we could have a service where we have our first party lineup available for a low monthly fee of $10 or $20 a month. And here's all of our games. Or we can sell these games at $60 and sell 20 million plus copies. Folks are still buying old ports of, you know, what was the recent one? Skyward Sword for $60. And it sells out instantly. And it's in the top 10 charts. And it's like, I think it will take a matter of time to get them to a Game Pass type model. But when they sell 20 plus million copies with the first party games, there's no rush to get to that service for them.
There isn't. And Nintendo exists in a very interesting niche in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
They own mobile gaming.
Mm.
I don't care how many devices you sell me that can strap my cell phone into something that makes it have the same sort of control layout as a Switch. The value proposition is there. The engagement proposition isn't.
Mm.
There's something far different between playing a game on a Switch and playing a mobile game on my phone in a Razer Kishi, or even xCloud, and which I do. I mean, I have one of those for xCloud.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
The Switch is the Switch. And so they are going to be immune from some of this for a while because of the fact that they have a catalog full of intellectual property that has captured, I mean, it's literally captured the youth for half a century now.
Mm-hmm.
And those youth continue to grow up and they continue to buy those things and more young ones come in. And so the Switch is a brilliant device and it sort of goes counter to everything I just said. The PlayStation 5, when you get right down to the guts of it, the difference between a PlayStation and an Xbox were really divergent in the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era. And both of those consoles were very sort of, the Xbox 360 is a complete outlier because the original Xbox was essentially PC hardware.
Right.
And the One and the Series are both essentially commodity PC hardware. The PlayStation 3, I mean, all the PlayStations have been a little different. PlayStation 3 was the cell hardware. But right now, honestly, the difference between those two platforms is very minimal from a what chips are in them sort of standpoint. So Sony already understands that going with commodity hardware is better than developing something like the cell processor. So they are probably closer to the decision that we're talking about, which is at some point the hardware becomes a zero-sum game, and so you only focus on the software. Right. And you're already starting to see that a little bit. And I think a lot of this has to do with Epic throwing money at them. But you're already seeing PlayStation exclusives show up on the PC, right?
It's free money.
Yeah, right. Horizon Zero Dawn, they're using the same engines. They're using Unreal. They're using Unity. So getting them to work on the PC is just an inertia thing. And what overcomes inertia in capitalism? Well, money overcomes inertia in capitalism. Right. And Epic, as we've all seen from disclosures from the lawsuit and various other things, Epic is willing to throw money at the inertia problem. And so I think and even the Sony showcase today, many of the games that you saw on that Sony showcase today were also listed as being coming on PC, coming on other platforms. Mm-hmm. And so the era of the exclusivity thing is going to, it's been diminishing for a long, long time. It's going to accelerate the diminishment. And at that point, what does the hardware mean? What does the hardware mean versus having the players playing your stuff, regardless of how they get to it? And again, that is why software is more important than hardware.
So you think that we're closer to a PlayStation app and an X Cloud, whatever, just an app on a smart TV than we are to, going back to the days of the PlayStation 6 or 7 and
I don't know if we're at the end of the console hardware yet, but I think we even saw this with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Console generations used to be a definitive 5 years.
Right.
5 years and out. And I think the last generation was 7, 8.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing that extend. And so at some point, that point is going to extend to the point that better games will have come out than the hardware that those represent on the streaming services. And at that point, it makes no sense to do the R&D on another platform.
Right. That's amazing.
Or at least on another consumer accessible platform. You still need to figure out what you're going to be running on the back end, but that's a totally different problem domain.
You're a smart guy there, Jeff. Don't let anybody tell you any differently, all right?
Oh, everyone tells me that on a daily basis.
Oh, this got like surprisingly deep.
Yeah, no, this is why we do the show, man. This is why we do it. Now it is time. We are running. We're at 50 minutes already. So why don't we get into our rapid fire section here? This should be good.
Level. Okay.
Yeah. Check it. So it's very simple. We're just going to ask you a bunch of silly questions. You're going to get your most heartfelt answers off the cuff. Okay. I'm going to start you with an easy one. Is cereal a soup?
No.
Okay.
It's a stew.
Oh. Well then.
Oh.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That's a new one.
I like that.
That's a new one. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Physically, yes, it can exist on a pizza.
Preferentially.
I'm a foodie. I have no qualms with a ham and pineapple.
No qualms. You see that, Andy?
Okay. Did you say ham though? Was ham part of the
ham
equation?
is part of it, yes.
Yes.
You see,
you don't do pineapple and anchovy.
No,
Ugh.
it's just pineapple. It is pineapple, period.
No, I see. No, I don't think that was a caveat ever. I think it's understood that there's a piece of ham on if you're. It's a Hawaiian, whatever. And you know what? I digress. What's your Dungeons and Dragons class?
Class?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, all TAs are literally chaotic neutral, and I'm a thief.
Oh, chaotic neutral thief. I like it. Very good.
Is that an agreed upon class for all TAs? Is it in like the Slack channels? Like, guys, just so we all know, this is who we are. This represents who we are the best.
There's also been a recent discussion of do all TAs suffer from ADHD? And the percentage is extremely high because we all have found a career where we can bounce around about 1 million different things in a day. Now, granted, I'm from the era where you never tested for that. And I literally, at the age of 52 plus, I don't want to get tested because I found a career where if I am, in fact, it's a benefit because if I have to bounce around to 1 billion different things a day and I don't want to ruin my flow.
Sure.
But the discussion was pretty deep. And a lot of people in the community are like, oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was diagnosed last year with ADHD, so I know about getting it late, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You look back and you're like, yep, that explains a whole hell of a lot.
Would you rather have an exact clone of yourself or $1 million tax-free cash in your hands right now?
Oh, the million.
Yeah.
Would you rather have the...
Wait a second, hold on.
Oh, God, hold on.
No, the million, because a physical clone cannot be sold as an NFT. So
that is true. That is true. That is true. Would you rather have the gift of teleportation or time travel?
Well, time is space, so I'll take the teleportation.
I like that.
Your coworkers get a call one day at the office. you're late to your afternoon meeting, and it turns out you were arrested for a crime. What crime have you committed?
Oh, clearly murder.
Clearly, it's not even a beat goes.
What was the weapon of choice?
Oh, the weapon? I'm not going to tell you for plausible deniability. I don't want you
Gotcha.
That's her. Yeah, that's a very that's smart. See,
I think we've met our match.
He's also thoughtful. You see that?
5 steps ahead of me, this one.
What is the first animal you want to visit at the zoo?
The seals.
No.
See, I was going to ask you like zoo or aquarium, but I feel like you're lingering more towards
Aquatic animals, perhaps.
The sea creatures.
Oh, I haven't been to the aquarium in a while. See, Indianapolis has a better zoo than Chicago, but Chicago has an aquarium.
Right. And a great aquarium.
A very, very good aquarium.
Yes.
The Indianapolis Zoo is really fun, and I say the seals because that's right there at the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. You were very literal and technical with your answer.
It's not my choice. It's the first thing I have to see when I walk in this damn place.
I'm not going in blindfolded, you idiots.
Okay. Let's think of a good one here.
Let's get some good ones in. Go into your darkness.
I always love asking this one. What is something you have done that should have gotten you killed?
What have I done that would have? Oh, that's easy. I'm a pilot.
Well, but was it like a near crash experience you had at some point? Like,
no. Okay, all right. Something that literally should have
it should have killed you, but you walked away.
Okay.
Miraculously.
College was visiting a friend at a different college. Had rented a car. Was driving home after not sleeping for about 2 days. Went to pass a truck on a 2-lane highway in the back roads of Indiana, and no one to this day can even explain to me why that truck was turning left into an abandoned house that had been abandoned for years and T-boned my car, and it rolled 3 times and took out 150 yards of fence, and I woke up in the hospital.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. You.
Oh my God.
You might be bionic.
Yeah,
Goodness.
I might. Also, broke my leg falling off a diving board when I was 15 and sat in the bottom of an 8-foot diving well for about 2 minutes waiting for the lifeguard, who had his back to the pool talking to a girl, before I decided I needed to save myself because I had figured out what had happened, because that sound is, you know what that is.
It sounds like
the underwater sound or the broken bone sound?
The sound of the bone breaking as you fall off the end of the diving board, you know what that is.
Good
It
Lord.
sounds like you were almost Jason Voorhees at some point in your life.
I may have actually been.
I think that's why murder was his answer before.
Yeah.
Staying on this train of thought.
Some pent up something.
Yeah, there's something there. Yes. Staying on that train of thought, what is the dumbest way you've injured yourself?
Oh, I fell off a diving board when I was 15.
But you're supposed to fall off the diving board. That's the function.
Most of me fell off the diving board, but my left foot got hooked on the end. And so like you run to the end of the dive, you jump before you get to the end, so you land on the end to get the spring.
Yes, correct.
Well, I slipped, and my right leg went to the side. As I'm falling forward from losing my balance, my left foot got hooked on the end, and both bones in my lower leg broke. And I heard that, and I fall to the bottom of an 8-foot diving well. Thank goodness I have 15-year-old trumpet player marching band lungs, and so I'm just sitting down there waiting for the lifeguard to maybe realize that I haven't come up, but he's got his back to the pool talking to a girl. So after about 2 minutes, I decided I should swim up. And not to put too fine of a point on it, when your foot isn't connected to anything, then your leg kind of does this because of the water creating. And I ended up with my left leg is an inch shorter than my right leg because the bones are not aligned. They're aligned next to each other now, not on top of each other. So that's literally probably the stupidest thing I've ever done.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Just to continue on this path.
Please.
I really love where we're going. So you're in the hospital after your near-death collision. You've woken up and you see the doctor and he says, "I'm sorry, Jeff, but we've had to amputate your ... What is a body part you wouldn't mind losing?"
Oh, my right big toe.
That's very specific.
Your right
That's
big
the
toe.
right big toe. Do you
Yeah,
have
is it wrong in some way?
Yeah, do you have some sort of beef? Like what's
I have a current beef with
Sort
her.
of vendetta?
would you rather have the power of flight or invisibility?
I already have the power of flight, so I'll take invisibility.
Heard that.
Oh, my
Very
kind
smart.
of guy.
Very smart.
Would you rather have edible spaghetti hair that regrows every night, or would you rather sweat not sweet maple syrup?
I'm going to take the spaghetti because one of the things I've learned being a man in middle age who doesn't necessarily have all of the hair upstairs is I sweat out of that spot, and I would not want to sweat maple syrup out of that spot.
Would you rather explore the deepest, darkest parts of our ocean with no threat to your life? We figured out the technology, and same caveat, a faraway planet. Those are some of my go-tos. I like those.
Is it okay to sleep with socks on?
It is, but my subconscious self believes it isn't. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm no longer wearing them, and that really still freaks me out.
Yeah, every time.
Oh, let's see. We've got a couple more, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah.
I want to get some classics. Oh, is a hot dog a sandwich or a taco?
They are both the same.
Okay. Okay.
So, I mean, the what is it?
It's a hot dog.
A taco is literally a hot dog by that property.
I was gonna say, could you call is a taco a hot dog?
Taco's totally a hot dog.
Yeah.
Well, no, it isn't though, because this week it came out that if you eat a hot dog, it takes 36 minutes off your life, but no one has said that a taco reduces your life expectancy.
That is true. That is true. But they did say something added to your life expectancy. And that I want to try and remember it.
Better be tacos.
That would be. Oh man, I would be so old when I die. So
I feel
old.
like I should not be alive given that
With the hot dog,
rule.
yeah, no. That's my dad is on borrowed time. He can't have a hot dog without having 3 hot dogs, and I have the same illness, so we don't buy hot dogs. that's the only way. That's the only way.
You don't eat the gas station roller hot dogs, do you?
I'll eat any hot dog.
No, I eat the dirty water.
Dirty water dogs. I'll do
Times Square cart.
Yep, a Nathan's dog. I will microwave a hot dog. I don't give a shit. I will. A big time fan of Franken eggs. Frankfurters chopped up in some scramby eggs. Oh my god, get out of town. So delicious. So delicious. I'll eat a hot dog anyway. And as soon as I find out what's in it, I will not be deterred. I will continue to eat it.
I will eat them out of spite.
Yes. These are delicious hooves.
Give me that cancer stick.
Cartilage.
Here's a half hour. Here's a half hour. Here's a half hour. Like every year, he eats like 72 in a sitting.
Yeah.
Like he's taken like 15 years off his life at this point.
Just in competitions, but like in preparation of those competitions.
Oh, the training regimen.
He's literally he's what's his insurance look like with this statistic that comes out? His insurance company's like, yes, we have.
They've gone up this week.
Yeah, your premiums are now $200,000 a month. Thank you. Goodbye. Good lord.
His insurance, or what does his plumber cost? Just fuck the insurance.
All right, Andy, let's get another one from you. Then I'll do the final.
Yeah, so this is a fun one. What word best describes you when you've had a little bit too much to drink?
Quiet.
Wow.
Okay, you get quiet. Okay.
Wow.
It's a weird flip for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Oh.
but I kind of see it because okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's get this. This is the final question of the show. It is the question that we've asked all of our guests. Some of these questions we ask all of our guests, but this is the most difficult question as a technical artist, as a father, as a human being, as a pilot. Like there's no question that you have been asked or ever will be asked that will be more important ever. Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna look in the right camera here because it's very important that you understand that. It is a binary answer. It is this or that. That's it. There are two choices.
That's a Boolean answer.
Yes. Andy or Steve?
Ooh. Huh. You didn't give me last names, so I'm going to go with Andy.
Okay. Well, he's Greek, so you know
Bonus multiplier.
he's got a Greek last name.
No, but I didn't know that you were talking about you two.
Oh, I see. I see. That's good. No, that's good.
It's just some Andy he knows.
It's
that
just
he
some
prefers
Andy. Yeah.
over me, probably.
Andy Kaufman and Andy Richter. I don't know. Could be anyone. Could be anyone. Plus, I spell my name with a PH, which just makes me pretentious. I know. I understand. Or at least my parents.
A little bit.
My parents. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring us to the end of the show. If you want to follow us on social media, we are Duel_Screens. I'm at BatchOut27. Andy's at PantsGuy. Our Twitch is twitch.tv/DuelScreenStreams. And our Facebook group is facebook.com/groups/DS Podcast. Jeff, where can everybody follow you? Everybody follow Volition. What are the goods? Tell everybody.
Let's see. Twitter for Volition is at Volition. Twitter for me is at Jeff_Hanna. Facebook, I tend to only do friends on. No offense to everybody, but you know that's where my friends and I keep in touch. And besides, Facebook tracks too much information from us anyways. And those glasses they released today freak me out. But yeah, that's it. Mostly Twitter. If you want to see me, join my Twitter at @Jeff_Hanna. Especially if you want to see me spend all of my time railing against my local Congress House representative.
Oh, excellent. Oh, it's gonna get spicy. I like that. Let's get spicy.
I like it.
Spicy.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for being on the show. It was an absolute pleasure hanging out with you. We got to do this again sometime.
This was fun.
Yeah, this was great. I really enjoyed this a lot. Andy, thank you as always. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers. And as always, please be excellent to each other.